Lalith, welcome back again. And what's your favorite quote or saying, sir?
My favorite quote or saying, oh my gosh, you're surprising me with that. I would say, breathe and observe.
So, messy world of business. What context? What defines a messy world of business?
Well, it goes to the fact that everything is uncertain, impermanent, and now there's an acronym that's used in the business world called the VUCA: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So that has always been the default mode on this earth. Just that every time we evolve with a new technology, every time we find a basic sort of scientific, what they call a truth, they think that now, okay, we've found everything, everything's solved, and there's no more uncertainty. But that's all impermanent because there's no such thing call a called a real truth at the end of the day. There are different degrees of truths that are happening, and there are objective truths. There are different levels that we can work at. But if somebody tells me, I know the truth, I've got all the answers to everything, I'd say, hey, hang on a minute. I'd suspect that person. So the most important part is to really acknowledge the fact that the world is messy. To begin with, nature is messy. Nature is uncertain. Our emotions are messy. Our minds are messy because we are constantly searching for something, searching for, say, peace of mind and contentment, but in a world that is uncertain. So there is that tension that is default, and when we accept that with grace, then we can really function in this world without getting all angry and emotional and upset at everything and trying to control everything. So that's why I promote also the whole practice of mindfulness. Is about, as long as we are alive, we know one thing for certain, that we're breathing, and we're breathing this air, and we can manage our emotions somewhat by focusing on this breath. And that is something that is fairly certain, until our dying day. So when it comes to organizations too, if the earth is a messy place, organizations are also going to be a messy environment because of all the uncertainties that are there. So what are some of the things that are outside our control? We can say superficially we can control the building that we are in, we can control the temperature in there, we can control the number of machines, we can control even the number of people who are going to come to work and do a certain output to a certain level of quality. So those are things that can be controlled somewhat and managed somewhat, but we have absolutely no control about the politics that's going on right now. Absolutely no control over that, especially now, because we can see the quality of politics is really not at a level that sadly our children should be taking an example from. So the quality of leadership, I don't even call it leadership. That's just a misuse of power is going on right now, and the kind of control that's put in to the world, the surveillance and all that, is creating huge issues for an organization. So we have, as organizational leaders, as business leaders, business managers, we have absolutely no control over that. And we also have no control over the economics of the world. Again, there's a push and pull with that. There are certain drivers of the economy, and there's a gap between the people who control the economy and who are subjected to that economy, and there's this notion that the people who control the economy has total control. Then we know that they do not. So the other one is the social issues that are going on around us, because the social issues are linked to our emotions. So if I am not getting the food that I need to sustain myself, if I don't have a sense of safety, physical and psychological safety in the places that I live, if I am not allowed to live in dignity, I'm going to go a little crazy on you, because the vile behavior sets in, and that's how societies can get destabilized. with violence and crime and all that too. So we have, again, no real control of that outside the walls of our organization, right? And the other one is technology. Now, technology, because technology is evolving so fast in the last 15, 20 years, we have seen, Bernie and Wayne, how crazy it has been in terms of the development. Right now, artificial intelligence, I'm still, jury's out, you know what I mean? I'm still, I know, Bernie, you love AI, and I call it artificial information because at the end of the day, it's the human being who's really the most creative. We are the people who are creating these technologies. And there is a danger if we are going to hand over the power to the technologies to run our lives. And that's the balance that we are trying to find now. And again, we have absolutely no control over that. And the other one is the environment. Climate change is real now. We can see it happening around us. We have absolutely no control over that. And the other one, final one, is the laws and regulations that the politicians and the legislatures are imposing on us that we have no control over, because there is right now a reactivity that's going on. When a society is running scared, when it's running on the basis of scarcity and fear, what you want to do is, what happens is, the people in power want to control you. And so laws and regulations are now being brought out for more and more surveillance, and you couple that with technology, we are in a very difficult situation. So for organizations, for business leaders to be creative, innovative, to move out there and get things done, all of these uncertainties bear upon us, and we have to really stay grounded through all this too.
I see one thing in just even your bio that impresses me. There are those who say we've developed an incredible fragility. We're all very fragile. You seem to have embodied a resilience, an emotional resilience. And I was wondering, did that happen accidentally? Did you make a decision? Was it part of a spiritual practice? How did you get this resilience in a world that is chaos?
Nice question, Wayne. I believe that part of the answer to that is the fact that I was born in the Eastern part of this world with Eastern philosophies, which embraces uncertainty and impermanence, embraces the fact that life has suffering in it. So when you have that kind of an education from the time you're about 12 years old, you accept the fact that I'm not going to be able to control things. So then that acceptance, then kind of, you just sort of throw up your hands and say, okay, there's never going to be perfection in the world. And I'm also going to be much more compassionate and a forgiving person, but I will hold myself to an ultimate standard. I come from an engineering background, so standards and quality levels are important. Factors of safety are important. All of those things are important, but also to understand the fragility of this body. I'm 65 years old. This morning I did my 2 hours of exercise, push-ups, pull-ups. I would say I'm on average probably I have more endurance and strength than, I'm probably in that percentile that has more endurance and strength physically. But even with that, I feel the fragility of my body. I feel it, when a bug just takes you over, and when that cough starts and when that throat starts itching, and then you feel it moving through the body, it can happen so fast. It can just knock you out. It doesn't matter how strong you are, right? So that's what I'm talking about in terms of the fragility. So to accept that, but also do whatever is needed to mitigate that from us going down with that, in terms of our strength and ability, our endurance. And there's another thing that is now proven also out there. It says that even as we get older, our ability to resist, our ability to be fast, in terms of that explosive force that we used to have when somebody said on your marks, get set, go, that taking off, or, if you're in martial arts, the ability to react fast. If we can keep that going for as long as we can in our life, that physical ability responds by also keeping our brains agile and brains fast. So, because the brain is also part of our physical system, right? It only makes sense. So this is why it's exciting to really think about the mind-body process that's important as business leaders, because we have to have a cognitive system operating at its optimum at any given time to deal with all the challenges and the issues that we're facing in the world, right? And to do that, we have to have our physical body, our blood flowing well, oxygenated blood going to the brain, because our IQ levels will depend on how our brain is oxygenated, how our brain is physically strong too, and it's a reflection of our body's strength too. So this is why, so that physical part is extremely important for any business leader now, especially facing all these challenges that are coming from all over the, it's just storms all the time, right? And we call it, so in the business world now, we have started using words like radical uncertainty, wicked problems, perma crisis. So these are words that are now being used and accepted in the business circles. And then now we're saying, okay, how do we become resilient through all these crises? And the mind body is the foremost place, the foundational place that has to stay strong, stay clear-headed. So, if, I mean, I have nothing against, having a few drinks every day or whatever, right? Alcohol or whatever. But when you cross that line, or if you even if you say smoke marijuana every day as a habit, but if you cross that line, it can start affecting your cognitive system, right? So if you want to be in peak performance, you need to think about what you're ingesting into your body. The best thing to ingest into your body is, first of all, a good breath of fresh air, right? Because you're oxygenating your body. And then the good food that you eat, that's going to be nourishing the brain and the rest of the body. The water that you need to drink to make sure that you keep hydrogenated, because your brain needs to be hydrogenated. And then good sleep that we have to have. So, again, meditating ourselves to sleep as best we can. And the other thing is a sense of community, the sense of love that we have, because we have isolated ourselves to a level where we are now alone. And especially business leaders, it's really lonely at the top. And when you're lonely at the top, you also don't trust people around you. And that's the worst place to be, right? So there's a whole combination of things that are happening. So to add to that, you have to really also be a curious, critical thinker, and to think about everything that's coming at you. So when I take a deep breath and say, observe, and I quietly breathe out, if I'm hearing something, if I'm reading something, if I'm listening to something, I'm able to take a step back and think about that a little bit, and then think about it critically. Is this the truth? Is this person trying to pull the wool over me? It could be even somebody who's a great expert who's saying these things, but even a great expert can get things wrong. So how can I take responsibility for what I'm hearing to really do a check on all of these myself before, especially if it's a crucial decision that I have to make, by taking it through a critical thinking process, by checking the pros and cons of what somebody is being advocating to me, and then making up my own mind about it based on a whole bunch of data and information that I can gather, that I need to gain the space to be able to do that. So that's taking personal responsibility. So the thing is, in a fast-paced world as today is, it's so difficult to even find the time to do that. But it is imperative for us to think critically if you're a business leader.
It's interesting. You spoke of chaos earlier, and chaos just means we haven't been able to take the information in and know its structure, right? Because chaos doesn't necessarily mean there's no structure. It just means you can't observe the structure that's driving. Depending on whether it's 2 miles away, 2 kilometers away, the butterfly flapping its wings in China causing a hurricane here, that type of scenario, because you can't see the cross connections. And the other thing I'm been made aware of in life is that if there are no problems, there are no opportunities, because it provides that churn. So uncertainty then it always means there is an opportunity. Would that be fair to say? There's always going to be an opportunity behind the door. It may not be the opportunity that you're thinking of. It's sort of like, I'm really in the mood for apple pie and I get cherry pie instead, equally as good. Right? Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, Bernie. You hit it on the head, because without chaos, we won't innovate. We won't be pushed to really think outside the box. Without the uncertainty, we will become lazy. So this is part of the natural way the world evolves, right? So that uncertainty is what gets us to think about overcoming some of these things to get ourselves to a different level. So what are we looking for as human beings? We are looking for some peace of mind, and we are looking for contentment eventually. But we know that we'll never ever have that at the end of the day. But it's a good aspiration to have. What are we looking for in an organization? We're looking to make profit for the organization, to keep it sustaining over a long period of time. We want to make sure that we're able to look after our team, our employees, pay them a good salary. We also want to create a good working environment, providing them with psychological safety, an environment where they can also learn and grow. But all of these things that we are trying to do is a balancing act, right? Because you do a little bit of too much of this, you're going to get too much of this. If you're going to end up paying your team a lot of money, but they're not motivated, they're not inspired to do it, they're going to get bored at some point with the money that they have. So how much of a challenge are you going to give your people? How much are you going to push them? So it's a constant push and pull, a constant tension that is there that we need to really work with. So we've all been involved in businesses, in organizations. We know that we're still, I mean, Bernie, we are still involved in a business that is a constant push and pull, and even at our age, we're starting something, and we see the tension of that whole new venture that we're doing. I've been involved in ventures with varying degrees of success, and when I look back and reflect on those successes, I can see certain patterns that happen. But when I look at the failures, I can see that how it happened is because this imbalance happened, because we have always collaborated with others in doing business. So it depends on the relationship issues. It depends on how are we meeting each other. Is there a meeting of minds? If there's an emotional disconnect, then the relationships become dysfunctional. So you see, it really, how do we respond to the challenges that are out there? And if there's one person who kind of gets upset and gets emotional and is not able to cope, you're going to put that business at risk, right? So everything is a constant contradiction, a paradox, and a tension. So part of the reality of this uncertainty is the fact that we have to then have the resilience to be able to live in this contradiction. Right now, the world seems to have parted itself between I'm right, you're wrong. If you're not on the left, so the left will say the right's wrong. If you're on the right, left is wrong politically, right? And there's no dialogue in between. The kind of things that are happening in organizations, in universities, the cancel culture of not allowing dialogue to happen by making judgments already on somebody for saying something could be a misinterpretation, but then hounding that person because there's technology available right now to vilify somebody globally and even get them fired for just saying something that they may have even not realized the implication of what they're saying sometimes, because there's a generational gap. There's a whole range of complicated issues that are going on. So these are things that create huge challenges for us as business leaders.
Tell me about how a leader can embrace and utilize unpredictability.
Well, as Bernie said, Wayne, this is where the opportunities lie, right? The fact that if there's something wrong, if there's something broken, if there's something that needs to be fixed, and somebody's looking for a solution to at least mitigate some of that unpredictability, there's an opportunity there. So we could now, I mean, from the younger generation creating technologies, it boggles my mind. Like, I mean, our youngest son is developing, he's in software engineering, developing an AI-based business. The stuff that he's coming up with, and I'm going, oh, you have something that you can solve that with? Yeah, I can do this. And it's amazing that there's a never-ending slew of solutions for all of these uncertainties that we have. But we also have to, I think, keep in mind, Wayne, the fact that we must not let the technology take us over as human beings, as thinking, feeling, loving, kind human beings. I think that's the other tension that we have to work with. We have to balance out that, because if we find a technology solution for every problem that we are having, then what are we going to do at the end of it? Right? We're going to just push a button and let it take over and do whatever it needs. But our body, even right now, the fact that we are sitting 8 to 10 hours a day in front of a screen in a sedentary chair, in a sedentary way in a chair, is hurting us. There is a huge health and well-being impact that's happening to all of us. So what are the opportunities that are there as a result of that issue, right? How do we? So it's infinite in terms of the opportunities that are there, because what happens is when we do something, when we invent something, we always create another problem. The invention of the motor car and the internal combustion engine has created another problem in creating this huge polluted earth, and the carbon that is now creating a huge challenge to us in terms of the climate, right? So we know that there's a cause and effect to everything, right? So that's where the opportunities come from. But I believe, though, that we have to honor the fact that we are one with nature, that we are fragile, sentient beings, all of us, and this earth is a fragile place. We have to really honor that at the end of the day. And that's where the value systems come in, to respect each other, respect myself, respect this earth. So this is where, for me, working with the breath humbles me to realize that if when this stops, I'm gone. That's it. This physical me is the end. And also humbles me when I sit down and meditate, when I close my eyes, to realize this breath is coming from that tree, coming from the soil, coming from this ocean. And when I breathe out, this carbon dioxide is food for the trees, food for the ocean. And the other fact is that every sentient being on this earth shares this bounty of air. So we are so interconnected and intertwined in this web of life that we have in the last 100 years forgotten that and created technologies to separate ourselves. The whole notion of individualism and all that has created the issues and the challenges we are facing. So I believe that whatever businesses that we are working on, we have to honor the fact that we are one with nature.
It almost sounds like you go back 500 years, go back 1,000 years. There's always been a transition. And, a short epiphany came into my head, and it might be a bit blasphemous to say, but it's not the intent. Is AI the new religion in the offing? In other words, in the past, we had something in the ether that was our guiding light. And I'm not equating AI to God, but we're using it as a following base. and AI just happens to be the next level. Originally, it was the Industrial Revolution, little less of a guiding light. It was more, process. And prior to that, we were agrarian. And if you're a sea captain, back in the day where there are no electronics, it's just the stars and you. You probably believe in a few things that are guiding you. The luck of the wind, or you might have given the wind a name other than El Nino. So is that a transition that we as humans are evolving to and from, or from and to?
Well, no, it's a good point because, science and technology have all become religious pursuits for many. And if you counter that, people become evangelical in defending that. But I think that's where we have to put things in perspective. These are all tools for us as human beings. We must never allow these tools to take us over like Frankenstein would, right? You create a monster, and we can create a monster if we go overboard with these technologies, because it's very easy to now put embed a chip in our brains, right? Are we going to go that route? Are we going to be so crazy to be doing that is my question, but it's already starting to happen. But we will create a different kind of a being. It won't be a human being if we start doing that. And I'm a firm believer of the cause and effect on this natural earth. There's a karmic effect in this natural earth that works on. So the earth works on those principles of give and take. So when we start breaking those rules, fundamental rules of how the nature works, then our humanity is going to be at peril in our existence, because the earth will just get rid of us and say, you guys have become so damn arrogant. Get out of here, right? And it's probably happened a couple of times in the last 200,000 years where we hear of advanced civilizations have been there. We hear of the cities that have been submerged in the waters, and we are discovering some of these now. And we think that this last 2,500, 3,000, maximum 5,000 year civilization is it. And we are so arrogant with ourselves with it. We think very highly of ourselves, which is really a danger to ourselves in their arrogance. Because I think the fact that we are fragile human beings, that the fact that if that tree was not there, how am I going to breathe? If I pollute the ocean, how am I going to breathe? How am I going to function? No matter how many chips I put into myself, that fundamental life force is taken out of me. I will then become a robot. That's it, right? And that won't be me anyway. All right. So the thing is, these are some of the fundamental things that we need, and you and I, we have opportunities to go in front of young people to talk about these things. They seem to get lost in technology, and the ability to really bring them down to earth by talking about some of these fundamental principles of our oneness with nature is important. I think that's the balance that's required right now, because we think that we can solve any problem through an engineering solution. There's no way. There's no way. We solve problems through discussion, through conversation, through give and take, by having empathy for others. Because we as a human, Homo sapiens, if you go back and read some of the books, I'm reading an amazing book by Jeremy Rifkin called Empathetic Civilization. And I've read many others where we won't be here. You and I won't be here if not for empathy and altruism, if not for love, if not for an unconditional love and being able to be vulnerable with another human being to procreate another. So it's a fusion, coming together and being vulnerable to each other. We have to let go of everything, all our fears in that moment, right? Of the procreation. And that's how we're here. So we are forgetting some of those fundamental things in nature. Separation, it's like the atom bomb. That artificial energy comes out of a separation of atoms. So separation is dangerous, right? So right now we're separating each other through technology. We are finding ourselves lonely in a dark room in front of a screen, without being in touch with reality, and creating havoc. The people who are hacking into computers and have fun, and they think that they're having a great time. by interfering with a network that may be even flying a plane, right? Think of how dangerous it is for it can become, right? So we have to really think twice about this human technology nexus. And that's where, young entrepreneurs have to think clearly, have to critically think about what they're producing, what are the implications, what are the pros and what are the cons, especially the cons. What is going to be the ill effect of producing this. If you saw the movie Oppenheimer, he died a man who was lamenting, thinking that, have I created a monster that eventually my name will be attached to somebody, and it'll be an idiot who presses a button that blows us all up and radiates this earth. I mean, what kind of crazy, even to think that is crazy, right, on this earth. So, but that's what we have come to, we are thinking it's normal to talk about this, right? And that bomb may have been developed out of necessity, because otherwise perhaps the Hitler would have gotten a hold of it, and God, knows what a madman like him would have done with it, right? So the thing is, we don't know, right? So it was, but if the world was smart, they would have put that technology away once and for all. Because at some point, somebody who shouldn't be having that technology will get a hold of it if it's floating around the world, right? And that's what's happening. So these are things that we have to, as new entrepreneurs, as business leaders, have to really think of the decisions that they make, that we all make, in the implication of those decisions to the common good of society, common good of the earth, what we call the commons that we share with each other. So that's really being a responsible business leader in a fragile, in a difficult, in a chaotic environment. And that takes courage, I think.
One thing that I'm trying to work through that I think you might have some insight on is, on one hand, we have to foster adaptability, and then we also have to have guiding principles, and sometimes they can be a little bit overly unflexible. How do you battle those two bookends?
Great question, Wayne, because when I work with organizations, one of the first things that I ask them is, have you got a set of values that you're abiding by? Have you articulated what those values are? Because that's what creates the guardrails for the organization. That's what creates the guiding principles for the organization. And in those values, invariably, there are two values there. One is respect and one is integrity. At least those two are there, right? But many organizations create those values and just hang them on a wall and put them on an annual report. And it is not a part of their daily realities. But that is really one of the biggest issues that is there. So yes, some of those values, if you're really going to adhere to it in terms of business ethics and all that 100%, you may not be able to then the other tension is to make the profits that you need to make in a competitive world, in a difficult world. So you are going to have to compromise on those values every so often to keep the organization going. So you need to be able to then put things in perspective. Look, if I don't compromise on this value, this company may come to a halt and my 60 employees are going to be on the street. And I might not be able to produce all the other products that I'm building for the greater good. Also, if I don't break this through. So as long as you're aware, I'm not advocating that we all do it all the time, but I'm saying that we are imperfect and we are human, and we will break the rules. We will. The white lies are always there as a part of our life, right? And we think we are doing it for the greater good. But for whatever justification that we are using, we have to be able to be flexible on all of these things too, by being able to look at the big picture, right? So again, Wayne, that's another tension that we have as business leaders that we need to deal with. So, we are asking really for a superhuman to play these leadership roles, right? That's the ask. So you, on the one side, you're managing something. Managing is you were able to measure things, the outputs, the resources, what the leadership function is where then you need a superhuman ability. You've got to have mental clarity. You got to have you go grounded in a great sense of purpose and values. You know, all of that has to be there on one side. You got to have qualities and skills to be a leader. But that is what will then define whether you're going to be looked upon as he or she or they were a great leader of this organization or great political leader that left a mark behind. You know, and that is again a fragile existence, because you're not going to be able to please everybody either in through this process, right? So that's the other thing.
That's something that struck a chord, and I think it has to do with the perception. I mean, is anybody infallible? Yes, obviously we're all infallible, and the
You mean fallible? You mean I mix
Yes.
up?
yeah,
I mix
yeah,
up those words too. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
infallible. You're perfect. You're perfect.
Yeah.
And just, you know, to say that is means you're fallible then.
Yes.
Uh, so, but a lot of times you have people that are in charge, and it doesn't matter what political spectrum you're in, it doesn't matter or what leadership role you're in. It doesn't even have to be political. You're in charge, and the chances are that you're going to have an error in your thinking or approach to something. And I think it is the how do you capture that and recalibrate, learn, and adjust, and do it with grace. So, do you find that leadership sometimes it's a matter of going, you know, I put the money on this horse, and that horse didn't win the race. So, was it the choice of horses, or was it the fact that you're betting in the first place that was wrong, right? How do you look at if you're talking to a business leader, how do you get them to go, okay, odds are you're going to screw up. What's next? What would you suggest?
That's again a great, wonderful question that you're asking, and a comment you're making in terms of the fact that no matter how many feasibility studies and market studies and focus groups and all of that we do for establishing a business, none of that is going to be enough. We're going to have to have a gut feel to making a decision too. So a lot of that comes from your experience, the wisdom that you have, the insights that you may have, that you may predict that this is going to be a success, right? So there is a big gray area there. And it could be just that you had a great product and it would have worked yesterday, but today the timing is wrong. It's not going to work today, right? And that's what can happen. So there's a myriad of things that can impact on a seemingly good decision to take you out. And you and I have been involved in some of those businesses, right? I was involved in a solar business. When I first came here, I was invited to take a stake in a solar energy company, which I thought was a gift on a platter, because it was a part of the Ontario solar program. It was, and this company already had about 10, the first approval done, and that 10, the first approval done is then a done deal. Then you just need to invest some money to get to the next step, to get to what's called the notice to proceed building the projects. So it was just given on a virtually, it was just a wonderful opportunity. But you know what? I didn't realize that politics happen in this part of the world too, in this same way, that political ideology also supports certain technologies and not supports certain technologies. And that's what happened. We got caught up in a provincial election campaign where the other party, basically the opposition party, basically said we're going to kill the Green Energy Act when we come into power. And I'm not saying the program was 100% perfect. You know, it had some flaws in it, but people had invested time and money, had set up solar manufacturing factories in Ontario, and Ontario could have become a leader in these technologies if we kept on going. Because that was the opportunity that was killed basically because of the politics of the country, politics of the day. So when I came to Canada in August of 2011, invested in this company. By September, we were up and running, and we were supposed to get the notice to proceed for these projects. By October, a new decision was going to happen. That all went underground and no decision was made. And I was left hanging. I had invested my time and effort and money in and expectations. And that really set me back financially. For even now, I'm feeling the effects of that because of the fact that I put all my effort into that business. So did I make a wrong judgment? No, because everything was good. But should I have known better that perhaps these projects may get caught up in politics? If I dug deep enough into the history, if I thought hard enough, I may have realized that. If I knew that there's an election coming, and if I could have understood that, yes, this might become a hot potato, I may have been able to mitigate that decision that I made to be a part of that. So these are things that can happen to us, seemingly at no fault to us, but it's timing. It's also fault to us too, because I didn't dig deep enough. So I had to take responsibility for that too, in making that decision. So those are some of the things that can happen to us. So we can do all the right things, but there's providence, there's a universe, there's God, there's whatever you want to call it. There's a magic and a miracle in the right time, in the right place. There's luck involved. There's a whole range of things that are involved in this. And this is why, we're going back to the beginning of this is messy leadership, the messy world of business. It's radical uncertainty. And it creates wicked problems right now. And those problems are now exacerbated because of the fact that the world is moving so fast, because technology is created expectations of us to move way faster than our human mind comfortably normally does.
You mentioned balance. And balance is one of those things that's out there right now in all the media, work-life balance and all these balance things. And is that something, and we know what being unbalanced looks like, that ends up in the news on Saturday mornings. Tell me about, is that something you do before you put your head down at night? Is it something you do weekly? Is it something you do quarterly? Is it something you put a week aside a year? How does one actively strive for balance in your world?
Great question again. So Wayne, again, we are on a constant seesaw, right, with everything. Whether it's your spousal relationship or familial relationships, there's one small thing that can put everything out of balance, right? So for me, it comes from being constantly aware. So this is where that daily, moment by moment, meditative awareness of what's going on around me. And it comes from a martial arts practice too, right? Because meditation and martial arts go hand in hand for a reason. Because part of an important reason is intuition. Because when you're in fighting mode here, if you can intuit that, okay, this is the hand that's going to come up now, or this is the leg that's going to come up. And if I quiet my mind enough, I can intuit that. So my mind becomes more and more intuitive. More I quiet the mind. When it's busy, when it's all over the place, we are lost in thought. We don't see things, we don't see patterns. So this is where I advocate that practice, to be constantly aware of your breath. So you're conscious and aware rather than you're unconscious and you're on autopilot, right? Then you get blindsided, right? So again, I took, in 1976, I went to Young Drivers School in Toronto and learned how to drive to the rules, because I drove as a kid in Sri Lanka and I didn't drive to the rules. I broke all the rules. So here, one of the things that was taught was there were 5 things. Out of the 5, I believe 2 were definitely mindfulness practices. One thing which I still practice is I was told, look at the big picture always. And the faster you drive, the more alert you have to be of the big picture. So that means I'm on the 401, like I was on the 401 on Saturday, coming to Ottawa, and now I'm driving, and the habit is then keep looking 10, 12 cars ahead if you can see. And if you can't see 10, 12 cars ahead, you back off. Make sure that there's room to brake, right? So that has become, that was embedded in my psyche, in my head when I was 16 years old. And I, to this date, whether I drive in Sri Lanka, which is really a crazy place to drive in, I am lucky that I haven't got myself into any big mishaps, is because of there you got to look out for cyclists, dogs, pedestrians. You got, you know, walking out from on the other side of a bus. It's just like, you got to be, it's a meditative being aware exercise. The other thing is that we were told, leave yourself an out, and that is to look at the mirror every 1.5 minutes, back this mirror and the side mirror. So that's a constant thing that I do now. I like, when I started meditating more and more, and when I came to Canada, I realized that that practice is still there, and that practice is being aware. So I believe to find that balance, Wayne, it's a constant pressure for things to get in balance constantly. It's constantly happening. It's that constant awareness then that keeps us managing to keep that balance from going on, because when we get blindsided, it goes completely out of balance, right? So that's the part of it too. So the other side of the coin is the fact that with the balance, you may find yourself in getting into a place of flow, right? Flow is when it's all happening beautifully. When you're even, so again, going back to the driving metaphor, there are times where you really feel that you're flowing, everything is flowing, the truck's moving out of the way, you're just going, and you get into that sense of flow when you play sports too, right? When you play basketball or rugby, you get into that zone sometimes where the person's beside you to pass the ball to, and it's happening like clockwork, because you're in the moment now, you're present, you're aware, your intuitive sense is operating really live because you're not lost in thought. So this is why it's so important for business leaders to have that constant awareness all the time too, because there's so many things coming at us. So yeah, so we can really have so many different analogies. So I say, and I call it the power of balance. Power of balance leads to flow, or being in the zone.
Well, if someone wants to follow up with you and say, listen, I need to capitalize on your services. Life's chaotic. I need to kind of get that the wind in my sails, but the boat running an even keel. How do they get a hold of you?
My email is lalith@mindfulsage.net. So that's mindfulsage.net. And I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Lalith Gunaratne. If you just follow me and LinkedIn, so you can contact me there. I thrive most right now, after all these years of experience, being the friend to the CEO, because it's lonely at the top. If you want somebody that a trusted a friend, in quotes, like, I'm not your friend, but I'm there to give you kind of feedback, and that's the role that I play with now starting to play with more and more people. So you can't even say I'm a coach. So I can be a coach, advisor, mentor, friend, to help you, to hold a mirror to you. Because from a business point of view, from a life point of view, there's nothing that I haven't seen, I would say, but it's not true. I'm still seeing things, I'm still learning things, but I've seen a lot. I've lived through war, I've seen through adversity, I've seen myself and others go through extreme adversity and really find their way out of really bad situations, because we do have an inner resilience that we can reach into. So this is what I help people to do, to find their best selves through the difficult situations that you have. So I love to work with people at the top to play that role.
I want to say to you, Lalith, Gunaratne, thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and insights. to my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. Again, if you need to seek advice and how to forge down the path, reach out to Lalith. And I'd also like to acknowledge the continued support from the following individuals: Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, renowned podcast expert; Fred Crouch, who's the Property Wizard podcaster, where I am a co-host; and Jovan Stryka from At Hive, a co-working space that's more than just a space; Melanie Weber, my invaluable business partner; and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves both as a coach and a host to these podcasts. To reach us, it's info@creativeinsight.com. That's info at KREATIVINSIGHT.com. Website's at creativeinsight.com. Wayne, how can folks reach you, sir?
That's right. It's my website, motivateyou.ca, MOTIVE, the numeral 8, the letter U.ca. And my email is wayne@motivateyou.ca.